Order your bottle online at myvirago.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. That's myvirago.com, coupon code IMMUNE. Virago and Maha, making America healthy again.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag.
Now, in getting ready for the show this weekend, waiting for my flight out of Shirakistan, I heard something I almost chuckled at. Of course, the whole thing is ridiculous and insulting. Sometimes you get angry, but every once in a while you get a good laugh out of it. You know, after all, the people who promote this ideology are really good for nothing. A socialist, a communist, a Marxist. I mean, what are you really good for? Absolutely nothing. There's a song like that, right, Squirrel? Can I play my clips? Can you hear it? I want you to hear the first time out of his mommy and daddy's house. His first big job, the mayor of New York City.
Here's how it will work. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line.
Now, I don't know how you sustain a loss indefinitely. And then you look at Illinois, $4.5 billion with a B, the federal government picking up the tab for all the useless people who can't pay for their own food. My next guest is a doctor of economics, and he's dressed to prove it. Not only is he wearing a vest right now with a lapel, but when he goes to bed tonight, it will be matching satin pajamas. Handsome, debonair, and wicked smart, E.J. Antoni of the Heritage Foundation. How are you, kid?
Shaun, it's great to be back with you.
Yes, you too. Can you explain to me how you can price fix fluctuating commodity or good, no matter what the reality of the world is in pricing at a grocery store, and why that will work, but yet in Chicago, a grocery store chain with over 50, arguably 70% of its sales, all food subsidies, SNAP, just closed 7 stores in Chicago. Why will the government cheese one work? Can you explain it to me?
Well, Shaun, look at it this way. You're talking about shaving 30% off the price at an establishment that has a 2% profit margin. Gee, how's that going to work? Oh, that's right, it won't. This just means the taxpayer is going to foot the bill, pure and simple. This is basic math, and I understand that might be a little hard for some of these Democrats here, but at the end of the day, that's all it is. You're gonna not only get rid of all of the profit margin, but you are going to have to sell all that stuff at a loss. There is no other way around it. Again, that's just the basic math. That's what the numbers tell us. So this means that all of these quote-unquote government grocery stores are really taxpayer grocery stores. At least that's who's paying for it. And that's what's important here at the end of the day. That's what New Yorkers, and not just New Yorkers, but people around the country need to realize. When we talk about, oh, we're just going to sell stuff for less, we'll just make stuff more affordable, as if you can do any of this by executive fiat. No, you can't.
But you could provide the good if you approached it from the right position. You know, this is the other side of the coin that really doesn't get the attention it should. So far, we've tried to pretend you can give people money and they will pay for their own items. They will do what the intention of the program is meant for. So we pretend that we can give credit cards to people who can't afford their rent or their food or their insurance. And we pretend that money is not being misappropriated, stolen, or those cards aren't being sold at 30, 40% on the dollar, which is the vast majority of it. When I talk to you about this Save-A-Lot, there is no explanation why $4.5 billion can come into Illinois and somehow grocery stores close. And the reason is we never approached it from the right angle. So now we're going to approach it from the government can own the grocery store and it'll work. We can approach it from we're going to give you money and you'll use it for groceries and it'll work. When the answer has always been, as it always should be, the provider is the only one that can ever fill this kind of need and answer this kind of problem. If grocery stores, all grocery stores that were in existence, that are opening in good neighborhoods, that are thriving in the real world, if they simply were able to give said food to people who needed it and take the deduction, not only would that work, stores would be opening. They would be closing. This wouldn't be liability of the people. You wouldn't have government ghettonomics and the fraud of the give me that grocery store, as it's going to be called in Chicago. So this is a real issue where we even have the answer if you can't pay for your food. In the same way, if you can't pay for your rent, why not let the landlord deduct it on his own profit margin? Let the provider, producer, the American, keep his money as he is forced to give away his goods. Isn't that the real answer?
It is, Sean, but here's part of the problem with that. We used to have a lot more charity in this country in terms of businesses giving away food, for example. It was very, very common, especially among fast food establishments, where they were constantly giving away food to the homeless. But then what happened? You had a handful of people who allegedly got sick from eating the food, sued those establishments. They lost a ton of money. And then little by little, everybody started saying, you know what? The charity's not worth it. You know what? I don't want to take that risk. I'd love to help people out, but I can't afford to maybe lose my business because I tried to be nice to some folks. So, but, again, you're absolutely right. The answer is private markets. The answer is private charity. The answer is private action. But again, I think it's worth pointing out, we would have even more were it not for this crazy litigious culture that we have.
Mine is not even giving it away. I'm not advocating for that. I never would. Mine is allowing the grocery store itself, the chain, the individual operator, whoever it is. If you're going to take my stuff, I don't want your money because that's the way you can taint the money pool. Just let me deduct it from what I owe the government, the state, the county in the form of taxes. Notice how the fear among the government supremacists is always to allow the individual to keep their own money. And that's the beauty of what Trump has already delivered. I was fascinated by the testimony of Scott Bessent when he talked about who already is taking advantage of the Trump tax cuts. I want to play this for you. This is a politician by the name of Smith.
Many taxpayers claimed at least one of President Trump's priorities of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, or the auto loan interest.
Approximately 62 million filers, or about 44%, Mr. Chairman.
And so what percent of tax filers who received a tax cut in filing season earned less than $100,000?
Just over 70%, sir.
70%.
70.
So what percent of waiters and other tipped workers who received a tax cut, thanks to the no tax on tips, earned less than $100,000?
90%.
90.
Our philosophy, our ideology, actually provides for the poor far greater than socialism does, which delivers to you a store in a ghetto with empty shelves run by government morons who could care less whether the food is fresh or the meat is fresh or anything is even there. So, I mean, there's no argument, and there really never has been. Why are so few people afraid to make it?
Ooh, Sean, that's a good question. Well, I think part of it comes down to the fact that, if you have a kind of society that really genuinely values private ownership, private enterprise, property rights, then that's one thing. But when you have a culture that is based really on envy, I think, which is where you get socialism from, right? Margaret Thatcher, I think it was, used to say it's the gospel of envy. In that kind of environment, I think it turns the entire situation on its head. And now people don't see economics as a way that I can benefit and you can benefit simultaneously, but instead they see everything as a zero-sum game. And I think when that really, really taints your vision, when that's the lens through which you see the world, I think not only are you going to come to obviously the wrong conclusion, But I think that's also how you get the kind of mess we have today and all of these false perceptions where because people don't actually see the world as it is, they don't actually see how the world operates, therefore they turn around and they come up with all the wrong solutions for how to fix things. Sometimes they're trying to come up with a solution to fix something that's not even broken.
Well, one of the things that's amazing is when you look at the idea that we have entire regions, cities, counties, states that are represented by what they call our American Democrats. Yet when we have the incredible scandal of the most of these entitlements, whether it's the $2.5 trillion for welfare in general, including Medicare, or the $1.1 trillion in education, or this new scam, $1.3 trillion in grants, over 70% is untraceable. And at the hearing for fraud, that was put on the Capitol Hill, put forward in the Capitol Hill, not one Democrat showed up, which you have to come to the only reasonable conclusion. It's because those are the areas that are receiving the fraud. Those policies and those government officials and the judges and the constituents know that they're stealing the money, and they are going to continue to steal the money. The problem with the whole argument is that we talk in the false virtue of the platitude of the argument itself, when the specificity of the theft is working out exactly as Democrats have told their thieving constituents it was going to work out. And at this point, you've caught so many tens of millions of Americans in on it. They like it this way. And that's what socialism is. If you want to live in the ghetto of New York, New Jersey, Philly, Chicago, L.A., congratulations, you're a Democrat forever. How do we stop paying for it at least?
Well, Shaun, first off, I mean, if you were implicated in a hearing, you probably wouldn't go either, right? In fairness to those Democrats.
Oh, I'm going. Sure. I'm going. And I'm bringing cigars with me. I love a good argument. Are you nuts?
Well, look, the way you fix this at the end of the day, first and foremost, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Okay, this is why Doge, I think, was so valuable. It's the fact that people are not going to be outraged regarding something that they don't know anything about, right? If the people don't know what's going on, they can't possibly be upset about the fraud, about the money that's being spent in their name on all kinds of things that they don't actually want to have that money spent on. So you have to make people aware. Once people actually are aware, once we find out about what's going on, again, for example, with Doge, where they uncovered all of these dead people getting Social Security money, it's something that we kind of all knew was going on, right? Everybody knows that's kind of like an old story. People know, yes, there's fraud in Social Security. There are dead people who get checks. But the fact that Doge was able to find literally so many simply by having one database talk to another, I mean, that was just absolutely extraordinary. And it once again got people upset. It once again got people outraged. And it is going to take public outrage to put political pressure on the politicians to actually make any kinds of changes. That's the only way any of this, I firmly believe, that's the only way any of this is actually going to change. People need to know what's going on. People need to know about all of the fraud, the corruption, the abuse, the waste, all of the ways that their taxpayer money is not only taken from them, but then spent so terribly egregiously.
Do you know what's fascinating is when you break apart these numbers, the other thing too is, right, we the decent, we the ones that make the world go around, sometimes we don't understand the magnitude of exactly the kind of money that's funneled into these most obvious failed areas, these Democrat-run hellholes. What's amazing is this, and I can't get over this grant program, this federal grant program, which skyrockets in 2021 to $1.3 trillion, then pulls back to $1.1 trillion. Now it's up again around $1.3 trillion, and 70% of it is stolen. When you look at the breakdown of where this money is stolen, it's like states like my very own in Illinois, my old one. And it's $35 to $38 trillion, or billion dollars, billion dollars in just grant money into Illinois. When you take the welfare money, I told you about food stamps, right? $4.5 billion. When you add up all of it, the Medicaid, all of the stuff that the federal government picks up that becomes our debt, that's another $36 billion. So you have over $70 billion of federal cheese money that just flows into a state that can't run It's bankrupt. They lie and they count loans as revenue. Did you know they do that? If you get a loan, you can count it as revenue. That's how they use this math trick to pretend this slob of a governor, J.B. Pritzker, balances budget. He's just getting more debt, more loans. So when you look at the kind of money, $70 billion, that's $70,000 million. And we don't know if it's like the grant money where 70% of it is stolen. We still can't crack the books open to these real mobbed areas like Illinois to know how much of the welfare money is stolen. So they've got a system that why would you change it if, in fact, you are one of these corrupt, profiting from theft areas? What's the incentive to change it?
Well, none. Again, until people actually are aware of what's going on, until people in places like Illinois are going to vote out so many of the bums that are perpetrating this fraud, then no, it doesn't change. It only continues to snowball and to get worse. And to your point, Sean, on all the crazy accounting tricks that we see with this kind of stuff, if you have all of these government transfers, things like food stamps, but it's not just food stamps. It could be things like rental assistance. The list goes on, right? All of these different government transfers where the government steals from you and then they give to somebody who's not working, and that person goes out and spends it. Again, they could spend it on groceries. They could spend it on a car. They could spend it on rent. They could spend it on cell phone, like you name it. Again, the list goes on and on. My point is that all of that spending then gets counted as what we call personal consumption expenditures, which is a fancy way of what we usually call consumer spending. In other words, it doesn't actually get counted as government spending. And so when you see these different analyses being done, where they talk about red states versus blue states, and that the blue states are providing, most of the tax revenue, and they're providing most of the economic activity, and the red states are the leeches. No. That's only because you are counting all of this government activity, all of these government transfers as private sector activity, as private spending. But the reality is, Sean, once you account for all of that, it's very, very clear the red states are the makers. The blue states are the takers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the food SNAP benefits, as it's called, $101.7 billion a year. I mean, you look at the kind of money we're talking about. We're talking huge money. I have listeners. A girl just called me. She's going to go to Aldi. She's going to go to Walmart. We, the decent, are forced to buffer the cost, not just in the grocery product itself, but in the taxation and the obligation to debt that's created in order to buy somebody else dinner. This whole thing about socialism, who exactly gets the money, we have no say in it. No say in it. And these areas are incentivized to do exactly what they do. Misuse, abuse the policies, misuse and abuse the citizens who turn to it as they're so-called in need, and they become your foot soldier to make the argument to protect that corruption. That's the other part of the problem. They are the foot soldier of the Democrat. And at a certain point, when you're struggling financially, do you care if the politician is stealing money or you just want something for nothing? It's the perfect way to overthrow a government. It's not just Cloward and Piven. That's about overwhelming the system in order to take it over. They already did that. Barack Obama did that. Now what you've done is you've built this constituent of the true face of greed, the recipient of the corruption, the recipient of the benefits. These are the foot soldiers. These are the ones that don't care in Maine. They'll elect a pickle jar. They don't give a rip what it is. In Seattle, they'll do the same thing. And you know what's funny to me? When you look at the money that the municipalities make. I have a guy in L.A., a fireman, makes $1 million a year. $1 million a year. The vast majority of it overtime, which he doesn't pay taxes on. You've got in Seattle, Washington, that dog without an upper lip that they call a mayor. She just gave herself a 30% raise. It's almost out of the closet in Illinois or in Chicago. Brandon Johnson hired 9,000 people. 9,000 people. And they all have these ghost jobs. So they've built an army when all we are the ones that get stuck with it. And that's the real description of why there's an influx. There are people out there that say, I'm done paying my abuser. I'm done paying the guy who's going to beat my wife up if she has to take the train. I'm done. And we're leaving out. So there is a movement afoot. I'm just wondering if you are hearing any rumblings in Washington that they understand the vast majority of this money in these Democrat areas, it's not going for anything other than to line the pockets of the politician and policymaker of the program. That's who's stealing our money. Do they know about it? Are you hearing a rumbling? I want to unleash Blanche, arrest everybody. What do you think?
Honestly, Sean, there is a surprising number of people who do understand it. Here's the problem. Most of them are on the wrong side. In other words, most of them are the ones helping to perpetuate the whole system. Most of the people who really understand what's going on, they're the ones who initiated the whole spoils system and again, are keeping it going. But those who understand what it is and those who are not on the take, but are in states like Florida or like Tennessee or like Texas, they're frankly the ones who are trying to help keep their own states not only just safe havens for people who want to get the heck out of Illinois or California or places like that, but they're also trying to very admirably do that on the national level. In other words, they are fighting Leviathan. Yes, it's an uphill battle, but we're working on it.
You know what else is fascinating to watch them? Watch the race card get thrown around. Watch all of this nonsense. And I say this to you, coming to you from a position of before Barack Obama, which is how I believe time will be kept in the future. It will be before BO and after BO. And when you look at what he has successfully managed to do, it isn't just add $30 trillion to the national debt, of which the vast majority cannot be traced. It's the divide of race in America. And I wonder how many people know. Do you know who Mike Ilyich is? You know that name from the founder of Little Caesars Pizza? Do you know who he is? He's a guy out of Detroit. He's an interesting guy. He founded Little Caesars Pizza. And he's white and Jewish. And Rosa Parks, you remember the one that they always throw in the face, the back of the bus and all of that? Rosa Parks, she was beaten in a ghetto neighborhood in 1994 by black guys. She was beaten, left for dead, and robbed. Mike Ilyich heard the story. He took her and put her in a neighborhood not far from him and paid her rent till the time she died. A Jew, a white Jew, self-made capitalist, took care of a black civil rights worker, and not one moron Democrat out there who wants to tear apart America in the name of race has any idea. None of them have an idea of what really benefits the ordinary man, no matter what the color of his skin is. The capitalist, the American, not the program. Because these programs deliver the areas and the ghettos in which Rosa Parks was beaten, regardless of what she stood up for or what she did. Why is it so many or so few people are willing to make the argument on the principle of just simply right and wrong? I stumped you.
Well, Sean, again, at the end of the day, I think so much of the way people view the world today, it's very egocentric, right? It's not about responsibilities. It's just about rights, not in the sense of the rights endowed by our Creator, but more so in the sense of I can just do whatever the heck I want. That's how people think of rights today, sadly. Yeah. And they don't see it as, when they see their fellow man, they don't see responsibility. They don't see, like the founder of Little Caesars that you were just talking about, a responsibility to help someone else in need, which obviously he did and was so incredibly admirable of him. I think a lot of our problems, yes, they're economic in the sense that that's the issue right now. Like our taxes being too high, that's an economic problem. But how we got there, I think, is probably fundamentally much more cultural. So it's not just a matter of we're fighting to change economic policy. We're fighting to change hearts and minds and win a culture war here.
Yeah, as we're being overthrown by the scum in our society. You know, I think Jesse Jackson was really close to making Rosa Parks rent payments and moving her out of the neighborhood, but he had to catch up on alimony from a white waitress he knocked up in California and abandoned. Do you have your ticket ready for ShaunFest?
Oh, it's already booked, Sean.
All right, you need me to pick you up from the airport? I'll pick you up. You have to put up with some cigar smoke, but I'll pick you up.
I love it.
All right, I'll see you later in the next month. Thanks, brother, for always making time. You know I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure, Sean.
We'll be back with your calls and comments.
Make money, smoke cigars, and live free on the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
Since 2007, Folds of Honor has awarded nearly 73,000 educational scholarships, over $340 million to the children and spouses of America's fallen and disabled military heroes and first responders. This year alone, 7,700 qualified applicants didn't receive funding, not because they didn't deserve it, because resources ran out. You can change that. On Saturday, September 12th, you're invited to an exclusive VIP concert experience at a private estate in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, featuring Gary LaVox of Rascal Flatts and the Swan Brothers, benefiting Folds of Honor. This is an intimate evening with incredible live music and an even more incredible cause. Tickets are limited, and if you own a business, this is your chance to put your brand behind something that truly matters. Honor their sacrifice, educate their legacy, make lifetime memories. For tickets or business sponsorship opportunities, visit foldsconcert.com. That's foldsconcert.com. Saturday, September 12th. Don't miss it. foldsconcert.com.
Honey, I can't deal with this kitchen anymore. It's cramped and everything is outdated.
I know, but it makes no sense to move. I could call my contractor buddy Chad.
Babe, you've seen Chad's house, right?